And now we'd like to welcome to the stage Adrian Hahn, CEO and co-founder of Six to Start. He'll talk about the design and development of fitness games for smartphones. Adrian.
Thanks. So yes, I'm CEO and co-founder of Six to Start. We're based in London. I just want to start by apologizing on behalf of 48% of the UK who actually voted to stay in the EU. The Dow falling by 5%, that's our fault, but we'll see what we can do about that. So I think for a lot of people, working out and getting fit and staying healthy is actually hard, which sounds obvious, but I think we'd be led to believe by a lot of advertising and by a lot of marketing that sort of running and cycling and all these things are just beautiful, joyful activities that don't really require any effort and don't involve any pain. But when I started running when I was a teenager and when I was at university, I found it really boring, I found it really tedious, I found it pretty painful. And the way that I got through it was just by using gadgets like smartwatches and GPS devices and things like that. And so this was a kind of personal problem that I had, and that's what led to our company making fitness games. And I think we had this hunch that this was a problem shared by millions of people. And it's not new that people have made games to sort of improve fitness. We have games like We Fit. We've got games that sort of address physical fitness, like Dance Dance Revolution. But it's interesting because these two examples are kind of the ones I show up and there hasn't really been a lot in kind of mainstream gaming that's really addressed fitness recently. And there are always tons of interesting ideas for improving fitness through smartphone games and through consoles. This is a kind of interesting game that I thought was cool called Turf, where you sort of run around through the real world and you collect locations and it sort of incentivizes you to run more. But the issue is that with the exception of Wii Fit and Dance Dance Revolution and games like that, most of these fitness games have not been particularly popular or commercially successful. And I think it's crucially important that these games are, in fact, commercially successful. There's so many games out there, educational games and fitness games, that receive a lot of funding, and you release one version, and then it sort of dies on the vine about 6 months later or 12 months later. And that's really not something that we're interested in. We're interested in making a game that people will actually pay for and value. And that's not just because we want to make money. Obviously, money is nice. But it's because making a commercially successful game is one of the few ways to dedicate enough resources to make a high-quality game over a long period of time. And so that's something that we've been able to do at Six to Start, unusually. And I want to go and share some of the lessons that we learned through doing that. And so our most successful game has been Zombies Run. How many people here have heard of Zombies Run? OK, so most people, which is cool. So Zombies Run is a game for Android and iPhone. And you take your phone, and you put it in your pocket or on an armband, and you go out running in the real world, or on a treadmill, because we can use an accelerometer. And you put your headphones in, and as you run, we track your distance and your speed, and we turn your run into a kind of interactive, post-apocalyptic audio adventure. So you run, and then we sort of play you the story by our co-creator, fantastic writer, Naomi Alderman. And it's your mission to run in order to go and collect supplies and rescue survivors and build up your base. And through the missions, you begin to identify these characters, and you begin to identify the world and the story. And so it becomes like this sort of 200-episode combination of The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones. So there's a big story behind it, as well as the gameplay. And that's really important. And so Zombies Run, it came out several years ago, about 4 years now. And at the moment, we have 3 million downloads, just over 3 million downloads, and over 250,000 active users. So I'm pretty sure that we are probably the most successful fitness game out there at the moment. I think there might be others out there that are successful, but not with 250,000 active users, and probably one of the most successful games of change ever. But people don't like talking about us. I'm not really sure why. So when we started designing Zombies Run, we had the really important idea that it should be for beginners as well as pros. And this sounds, again, kind of obvious, because I think that the biggest benefits you get from fitness games are helping beginners. But a lot of fitness games and a lot of fitness apps are made by, frankly, fitness fanatics. If you look at the people who go and design apps that have elements of gamification, like Strava and like Runkeeper and Nike Plus, these are made by people who think nothing of doing 10 miles a day. And they don't remember what it's like to actually feel the kind of pain of trying to just run around the block once. So we wanted something that was going to be really easy for people to get into and not punishing. And so one of the crucial things that this means is that it's not competitive in the slightest, and you cannot fail this game. Like, even if you walk, the zombies might catch you, but nothing bad is going to happen because you drop some supplies to distract them. So there's that, and also there's no leaderboard. And there's this idea that leaderboards and competition are really crucial towards gameplay, and that is certainly something that I enjoy doing when I'm playing competitive games. But for every leaderboard, there's someone at the top and there's someone at the bottom. And if you're the person at the bottom, it kind of sucks, and it's really demotivating. So that's something that we just eliminated from our game. No screens. We decided that this game, Zombies Run, and our other games, for the most part, would not involve you looking at a screen while you run. Again, it just kind of boggles my mind that people would even think to design a running game where you have to look at the screen. But most running games, in fact, do require you to look at the screen in order to look at a map, or tell you to go and run down towards that tree to go and pick up some treasure, or tell you to run left or run right. And it's like, have these people never actually run? Like, it's really unsafe to be looking at a screen, even when you're on a treadmill. It's really unsafe. So no screens. So that's kind of difficult, because obviously if you're making a smartphone game that doesn't use a screen, what do you have left? It's basically audio. And so that's why we made Zombies Run as an audio adventure. And the great thing is, of course, if you just go and look at people who go out running, so many people have their headphones in because they're already listening to music, or they're listening to podcasts or the radio or something like that. And so this wasn't a stretch to ask people to do that. Of course, that meant that we had to do some very interesting things of storytelling with the audio. A crucial thing is that because we wanted it to be accessible and we wanted to sell lots of copies, we wanted it to be possible to run anytime, anywhere. And so what that meant was, in combination with the next one, is that we didn't want to make people change their habits too much. Zombies Run, unlike a lot of other running games, is not actually location-specific. Now, we do use GPS to track how fast and how far you're running, but we don't say you need to run in this particular direction or towards this particular place. It's not like Ingress, right? We don't go and say that you get more points if you run in Central Park or you run in a certain direction. And it's not multiplayer. So all these things kind of sound like really, we're sort of cutting the game down and we're making it more basic. But for every one of those constraints, every one of those things where you say, OK, you've got to run in this direction, you've got to run, the game's only going to be interesting if there are 10 other people in your city playing, that makes it harder for people who don't live in an interesting place. I mean, most people, a lot of our players don't live in cities. We want something that could be played anywhere. And finally, we wanted something that would be made for long-term use. Because one of the things we know from research is that it takes many weeks for people to develop a new habit, a new exercise habit. And so any app or any game that basically has just 5 or 6 or 7 workouts, it's just not going to work. People are not going to stay with it, and they're probably not going to pay for it either. And that's why we wanted to go and put so much emphasis on the story in our game. Because that's one of the few things that we know can get people coming back again and again and again. That's why people keep on watching Game of Thrones. That's why people keep on watching soap operas. People will stay with something if they want to find out what happens next and they really like the characters. And I've talked about story in terms of fitness and in terms of games that change a lot. And people don't like thinking about story. They like thinking about game mechanics, because that scales, and story doesn't scale. But in our experience, story is what's worked. So we put Zombies Run on Kickstarter back in 2011. We made it all in-house. We had this absurdly low target of $12,500. And we got funded very quickly by 3,500 people, $73,000. Lots of people liked it. It was one of these kind of magical viral successes, real viral. We didn't have any marketing or advertising. And we kept the cost as low as possible. We bootstrapped it. We received no investment beyond this money whatsoever, and we've taken on no investment. So we have no VCs, no grants, nothing like that. And so that means that's good, because there was no gambling for insane returns. If we had an investor put $1 million in, they'd be banging down the door asking for $10 million, 3 years from now. And it's kind of very difficult to do. I'm not really sure anyone's really done that in fitness games, and that would have meant we'd have to take kind of crazy risks. So it got lots of coverage. That was very nice. It was released on time and on budget. It sold a lot. It cost $8 when it launched, so you can do the math. It made a lot of money very quickly. And we followed it up with continual updates from 2011 up until now. So from 2012, I should say, that's when it launched up until now. So that's 4 years of updates. So one of the things we added was Zombie Link, which is our kind of online portal. So you can go and see your runs, and you can go and share them with your friends, and you can figure out your performance and that sort of thing. And we kept the team small, but we had really fanatical customer support. I personally answered about a few thousand customer emails because I found it interesting to know what problems people had and what things that people wanted. I would suggest that everyone in this room does some customer support. You will develop a real feeling of empathy and sympathy for frontline customer support workers ever. I think it should be kind of like civil service or something, like national service, working in fast food or doing technical customer support. And so we kept the team small. We built up financial reserves. And so that's Zombies Run, and I'm going to come back to that in a few minutes. And so off the success of Zombies Run, the Department of Health and the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK, got in touch with us. And they said, hey, Zombies Run, that's really popular. But could you make a game about walking that would help us combat the effects of obesity in the UK? Because, of course, obesity has a massive cost to the NHS, and they kind of thought, well, anything that could really try and help address that might be worth trying. And so we received some funding from them for this particular app, for the walk. And so this was a different kind of game to Zombies Run. Zombies Run was about running for like 30 minutes or for an hour, and we'd have audio. And this game was an all-day walking tracker. So if you view, it's like a Fitbit, it's like that sort of thing. And so you put the phone in your pocket, and we would obviously just use the accelerometer or the M7, M8, M9 processor to go and track your steps throughout the day. And as you walked throughout the day, you would go and walk through this kind of fictional world, this kind of spy adventure, and you would unlock story segments. And there would be incentives for you to kind of gradually increase the number of minutes you walked every day. And this did pretty well. We got Editor's Choice on the App Store, very happy. It was a paid app. We sold about 100,000 copies, roughly, which is pretty good. I mean, it puts it up there as one of the most successful fitness games on iOS. But 100,000 sales is not really anything compared to 3 million downloads. So it was kind of eclipsed in popularity by Zombies Run. And so while we're very happy with how the walk did, how we made the walk, I should say, we haven't continued adding more content to it. because it didn't make enough money. And so why didn't it make enough money? Well, I think one of the problems was that there was this paid barrier. I think by 2013, by the end of 2013, when this game came out, the writing was kind of being written on the wall for paid apps. I mean, now, these days, we know that people are very reluctant to pay for apps up front. You know, the most popular apps and the most lucrative apps on the app stores are now free to play. And you know, charging $5 or $3 is very difficult to convince people to do, especially for something that's kind of quite new and unusual. I think the other reason is that we needed a stronger hook. The name Zombies Run is one that we kind of arrived at after much kind of soul searching. We thought of lots of things like Running Dead and all sorts of things, and we eventually arrived on the Zombies Run, mostly because it kind of described what the app was. And it sounds far more interesting, unfortunately, than the walk. And so I think you really can't underestimate the importance of having a really strong hook for people to just getting interested in downloading your app. And even though we had this editor's choice, you know, on the App Store, it still wasn't kind of as compelling a product for people to look at as Zombies Run. And I think the final thing is that, you know, I mentioned that the walk is an all-day walk tracker, whereas Zombies Run is a very kind of intense, you know, experience that you do when you do a single run. And it's very hard to deliver an all-day story. There are some apps that have done this sort of thing. So if you have ever played, it was a bit like the movie The Martian. You know, there are various games that sort of take place throughout the day, and they sort of provide story notifications to you, you know, on your phone. And that was something that we weren't able to do with the walk for obvious reasons, because you know, you wouldn't want your phone to start talking to you in the middle of a meeting. And so it became this real struggle for us to kind of remind people to keep on playing our app. And I think that, you know, we hear about problems about Fitbit, people stopping using Fitbit after a few months. You know, and that's even when they're kind of wearing it on their wrists. We had that problem of people just kind of forgetting that they were playing the walk. And so that was kind of a big issue for that game. So, you know, it did okay. It made us some money, but not enough. So then there was another game that we made a couple of years ago called 7-Minute Superhero Workout. And so this is a motion tracking home body weight workout game. And so it's a way to sort of make doing push-ups and crunches and things like that more interesting. And it is, of course, directly inspired by the 7-minute workout, which is kind of wildly successful. And I got excited by the 7-minute workout. It still remains one of the most popular paid apps in the world. And I tried it for a few weeks, and I found it incredibly boring because it's basically the same 30-second cycle of like wall sits and push-ups and crunches and things like that every single time. And so we're kind of thinking, okay, well, how can we make the 7-minute workout better? Can we do that with games? You know, if it's boring and repetitive, can we add story to that? Can we add gameplay to that? That's something that we did. You know, so when you do your workout in our game, you are taking the role of something that's kind of like Iron Man, and you're sort of, you know, helping save the world from invading aliens. And there is kind of motion tracking gameplay, so that when you do punches and when you do push-ups, we track every single one of those reps, and we correspond that with progress in the game and the story. So we're trying to make it more interesting. And so that's a kind of trackable thing as well. Because if you do, weirdly, if you do 7-minute workout, of course it doesn't know whether you actually are doing push-ups or not, so it can't really sort of track how well you're doing. The final thing about 7-minute workout that I think a lot of people don't really realize is it's called sometimes a scientific 7-minute workout. And this offends me as someone who is a scientist, because there's no science behind the 7-minute workout. It's just something that was published in a paper. And if you read the original paper for the scientific 7-minute workout, it says that they've developed a 7-minute cycle of exercises that you should perform at least 2 or 3 times in order to get a good cardio benefit. So it's not really the 7-minute workout. It's actually the 14 or 21-minute workout but like that kind of got left out of the New York Times article that made it famous. So I kind of felt pretty irritated by that. I wanted to make a game that would actually help people. And yes, 7 minutes is shorter than 40 minutes, but if it's not going to help people, I don't want to have anything to do with it. So we released this game, and it had great reviews. It got featured by Apple and Google. They loved the motion tracking things. But again, it wasn't this kind of phenomenal success that Zombies Run was. It didn't really take off. And I think there's a few reasons for that. So one of them, this is just like a business thing. It's really hard to dislodge an app that is called 7-Minute Workout that sits in the top 5 or the top 10 slot of the paid app charts. And this is just a kind of a function of app distribution on iTunes and on Google Play. If people want to go and get a home workout app, then they're just going to get this one because it's the most popular one and it's the one that shows up in searches first. And so we were kind of almost too similar to that app, and we weren't really able to get visibility. And so if you look into this market, actually, there are superior apps to the 7-Minute Workout app that are actually free, but people don't download them because they think they're not as good. Anyway, it's one of those market things. And so the other thing is, I think we kind of realized that the market probably wasn't actually as big for 7-Minute Workout apps as we thought it was. If you think about doing home workouts versus running outside, for the market that we were targeting, with a game that is to do with superheroes, that's kind of a younger audience. It's people who are kind of a bit more tech savvy. And I think on reflection, the amount of space they actually have at home to kind of do a motion tracking workout is probably quite limited. I think a lot of people are probably not into doing that, as they were in the past. So I think I kind of made a mistake with how big the market actually was for that audience. The other problem was that I think it was kind of too hard. People really enjoy playing our superhero workout game, but we do hear people saying, wow, it's really difficult to sort of do like 40 minutes. And it's like, yeah, that's a point. It is meant to be difficult. But I think that we sort of arrived at the kind of wrong combination of difficulty versus fun, and we probably should have ramped it up a bit easier. And that's something that we did with Zombies Run and the Walk, but less so of this one. So we kind of made a mistake there. And it didn't really work out as well, unfortunately. So coming back to Zombies Run, we made the Walk in 2013. We made Superhero Workout in 2014. By 2015, the paid app market really was just plummeting. I mean, people were not buying apps up front. And we were seeing the impact of that on the sales of Zombies Run at the time. And so we wanted to return to Zombies Run. We wanted to kind of see, OK, how can we help this grow faster? So the main thing was lowering the barriers to entry. And the most direct way in which we solved that problem was by making Zombies Run free to play. And so it was no longer, as of about a year ago, it's no longer a paid app. You can download it for free. You can get the first few missions for free. And then after that, you have to go and pay a subscription, either, I think it's $3 or $4 a month or $20 a year to unlock all the content. And we have tons of content and tons of game modes. And this is an auto-renewing subscription. And so this is something that you may be aware, Apple and Google have just changed the rules around how they award revenue to developers, and now you get more revenue if you have subscriptions. So this is a great way to sort of incentivize kind of long-term development. The other thing that we did to lower the barriers to entry is not just through money, but just by making the app really easy to use and improving the UX and the UI. We improved all that stuff. When we made it free to play, we increased the number of active users by several times, but our customer support load actually went down because the app was easier to use. And so that was something that we're really pleased with. And we just had continuous updates. Because if you have a subscription-based app, and people are going to be seeing money come out of their accounts every month or every year, they want to believe that you are actually still working on this thing. And so they don't need massive features, but we would go and update with Apple Watch support. with Google Fit support, all these things regularly so people would know that we're still there for them. And this is frankly something that we could only do because we had this app that had been out for 4 years. I think it's very challenging for new apps to sort of adopt this model. And what that meant in the end was that instead of making Zombies Run as a kind of product that we just sold to people like in a box and we forgot about, instead we turned it into a service, almost like a gym, like a fitness membership, that people would keep on using. And so in the last few years, in the last few months, we've been expanding the brand to all sorts of things, like a fitness book and a board game and merchandise and things like that. And the most recent thing has been running virtual races. Virtual races is this kind of interesting new phenomenon where basically people will go and pay actual money, like $30 or $40 or $50, for entry to a race that they can do wherever they are, and then they report their times using our app to our online leaderboard. And so there's this combination of physical and digital interaction. And so that's Will Wheaton up there of Star Trek fame. He's a big Zombies Run fan. So we've been trying to expand what we do into different kinds of fitness. And so our last virtual race had about 5,000 entrants. And that's something that we've been really pleased by. And we've been developing a tech platform that allows other people to go and run their own virtual races. So we're talking to charities and people like that to try and help promote more kind of interesting types of races. But I think that, the thing that's made working on Zombies Run worth it has been the effect that it's had on players. I mean, we get literally thousands of emails and tweets from people whose lives have been changed by our game. I think there is this kind of weird sort of feeling that Zombies Run is a bit of a sort of weird kind of game that like geeks play. But the fact that we've had people helping people recovering from Achilles surgery, we've had people who just didn't like running, but then liked running because of Zombies Run, people who just couldn't run before, but now can run for 25 minutes, people who kind of rate it just behind their family as the best thing that happened to them. That's been incredibly rewarding. And I think that that's what we kind of try to optimize when we design this. We want something that's going to be useful for people. And in order to do that, we've had to make it financially sustainable, not just something that we can release once and sort of leave it out there. So hopefully this has been useful. Hopefully there have been some tips there, including among those some of the things that we've actually done wrong. We've done many things wrong, and we've done some things right. But yeah, thank you for listening, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Why does Zombies Run have a digital town in it that you build up that doesn't feed back into the story?
Yeah, okay, so the question was, why does Zombies Run have a digital town that you build up using the supplies you collect on runs that doesn't feed back into the story? I mean, it used to, and then it became really difficult to write the story in a way that would adequately respond to the changes you make. And this is just a kind of very old problem with kind of branching narratives and responsive storytelling. And the story that we ended up writing for Zombies Run is very linear. And of course it's possible to get stories that are more responsive. And there are actually, if you do build some things in the base, you will hear different things in the audio. But it doesn't really make a big difference. And the reason why we did that is because you get more supplies the longer you run. And so if you don't run a lot, then, like as in time or distance, then you get fewer supplies. And this sort of comes back to not punishing people. We kind of wanted it so that the person who only runs 20 minutes 3 times a week doesn't get like a worse game than the person who runs 60 minutes 5 times a week. Because 20 minutes 3 times a week, that's still okay. I mean, that's better than nothing. It's a good start. But yeah, we would have liked to do more there. Any other questions? Oh, over there. Yeah, so the question was, based on what we learned, would we try and do a sequel to The Walk or something like that? I'm really interested in making all-day walk tracking more interesting. I think that might be something we do as Zombies Run, and we kind of leverage the brand there. We have lots of ideas of doing kind of like a new kind of walking game. People really like the walk. You know, it's a really, you know, people who play it really love it, but it's just trying to figure out a way that we can do that in a way that's even more popular and kind of makes more money so we can keep on working on it is a crucial thing. I think I'm out of time. I don't know whether I'm allowed to take another question in case there is one. I'm looking, no. Well, I'm going to be around, and thank you.